All right, we're rolling. Jim Fuda from Crime Stoppers, Rudy from Ballard. All right, Kurt from also Ballard. Shall we start with introductions? Mr. Fuda, would you like to start first?
Sure. Jim Fuda, 33 years with the King County Sheriff's Office, last 15 in Special Operations. It was a big boys with toys unit. I loved it. I ran Marine unit at one time, a squad of motorcycles at one time, and we all have ancillary duties. So I had search and rescue, the hostage negotiations team, the honor guard. I ran K9 for 5 years, so it was all fun assignments. From there, I retired in 2006, had a 5-day break, was on a plane to Pakistan, worked for the feds in Pakistan, Indonesia, and Bosnia. Worked for Microsoft for a year as their global event security director. Hated that job, was glad to leave. And went back to work for the feds, and that's when I was in Banja Luka, Bosnia for 14 months, where I worked the Serb part of Bosnia as their senior advisor to the Minister of the Interior. And from there, I'm the oldest in an Italian family. My mom died while I was there, had to come home and was one of the ones to go help take care of my dad. Then I was involved with Crime Stoppers, my work partner, Merle Carner, who formed that program in 1988. He and I worked together for 4 or 5 years, and just this last December, he retired full-time, and so we didn't bring anybody else on. We didn't know how funding and all that was going to go with the defunding efforts of the police. That's how we get some of our funding for Crime Stoppers as a nonprofit. So I've taken over the entire role.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today. Bona fide superstar on the podcast for the first time. We're taking big steps here. Thank you for being here. And then obviously everyone knows Rudy from Ballard. We've been seeing him, hearing from him. Okay, so first topic that I was thinking that we could get into is something that you guys were talking about as you were coming up today, and that's the issue with your mother. Did you want to bring that up first?
I would like to bring up the protection order issues regarding our elders. We were encouraged by patrol officers that there was nothing they can do in order to deal with a elder abuse issue, and the best thing that we could do is go to the courthouse, to King County District Court, and file a protection order, and so that if the abuse continued, that law enforcement had something to work on. So I took her, I went to get the protection order for myself, because the person that was involved with our family threatened me, and so I was able to get a protection order for myself, 500 feet, and getting that order through the DV unit to the North Precinct was a hassle. Somehow the paperwork got lost in the process of getting it from the unit to patrol, and I also had to serve Lake Forest Park. Lake Forest.
You're talking about to get her served, to get the person served.
Right. And so there's nothing, and the judge had stated the service needs to happen from Lake Forest Park PD and Seattle PD. So you need to make sure this copy of the service order goes to both law enforcement agencies.
But you do know that the sheriff's office has a unit, a civil unit that serves those for a fee, like I think it's $25, that they can serve that person, and they take care of all that and getting it to the appropriate agencies.
And so that's originally what I did with my order, is I took it to the sheriff's department unit, because I was downtown where I received paperwork, and took it over to the sheriff's unit.
Sure.
Yeah, and so it still got lost in the shuffle. So I had to call the sheriff's unit to fax it to Lake Forest Park PD and fax it back to Seattle PD, and eventually Seattle PD got it. And in the meantime, there's this gap between when the judge signs it and protecting the victim. Before, and there's nothing the police can do unless that person's been served. But you can call PD and say that I've got this order and that they can act on it at that point. The order was violated. Officers showed up, gave them the service copy. Officers did not know what to do with the service copy. This is Seattle PD. And I said, the person is right there. Well, and they're looking at the paper, but it's not in the system. It wasn't in the system.
Right.
And how can I verify this order if it's not in the system? I said, give them the paperwork, and right here, there's their declaration of service. You just fill this paperwork out and then send it through the system, and then it shows.
Should that person's been served.
Sir, yeah. But it was like, I'm doing all this work, and here the elder is all stressed out because she's older. She's still working, and she's worried about her home. She's worried about her employment where she's working, and so I stepped into the role to be present in case something happened. And anytime something happened, I'd call 911. I didn't have a problem calling 911. So yesterday we went to court together. My order was extended 1 year. So I got an order for myself, but her order hasn't been served to this particular individual. And again, I was told to take it to Lake Forest Park and to Seattle Police. So I called a non-emergency number. Can I see have an officer meet me at Soprano's Pizza? Because I figured I'd eat and wait. It's one of my favorite spots, I love the Italian food, even though it might be Bulgarian, but it's not. Anyway, so I'm sitting there waiting, and nothing's happening. So I'm thinking, dang, you know what? It's sunny. I got work I can still do. So I shifted over to Aurora. And I gave him the address where I was, and I'm sorry, but this is not a priority call. You're going to have to wait. And I'm going, okay.
But Mr. Fuda is saying all you got to do for this, am I right, is call the sheriff's civil unit?
That's
That being that.
that's the best way.
That's the best way to do it.
It'll get done. Yeah, they have that unit. That's what they do. They serve protection orders. They serve civil orders. That's what's called the civil unit.
So at this time, I was told today that there was a matter going on in North Seattle, and that Seattle was short-staffed, and that they couldn't get to me till this afternoon. I'm waiting for, maybe they may show up while we're in this podcast. So I may have to go to give the officer this copy, so it gets to the precinct. But I think I will that means I gotta take the bus downtown, go through that City Hall Park, go around the block. You know where City Hall Park is?
Yeah.
I mean,
Muscatel Meadows?
I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, that's why I dress for success. I'm not gonna shave. I'm gonna have my hair sticking out. I'm gonna have a Walgreens bag, and I'm gonna walk in, and then I'm gonna make sure that I follow proper protocol with mask. I don't make rules I can't enforce. Get over to the civil unit and talk to the lady there. She's super nice. I've met her before. Super nice lady. Very helpful.
But can I jump in here? And thank you, Mr. Fuda. This is part of the reason why it's so awesome having you on the podcast, because you have all this background knowledge of how the system works. But Rudy and I have been talking about the system and I have been lamenting a bit that it seems like we have put together this system of bureaucracy, and everyone's pointing at each other saying, no, that person has the responsibility, or if they have to take the responsibility, they take it on for a moment, knowing that they're just going to pass the buck later at some point to somebody else, and they're maybe not going to take the responsibility. And what I really appreciate about you, once again, is that you're part of an organization that is a nonprofit, private organization, and you get stuff done. And I'm just wondering, what do you think about the idea of restructuring things so that things are handled more in a privatized way and less in a state-sponsored way?
Well, first you have to have authority, and with a less, more of a, putting that in more of a public type of way to get things done, is that where is your authority to get that done? And I mean, you look at what's happened to the poor police here, is that their authority is getting stripped daily by this inept council that we have, and the mayor is another problem. They point fingers at each other. Oh, sorry, I see the problem, but it's not my fault. I can't. Well, somebody's got to stand up and take responsibility and to get things done. And you mentioned priority calls. That's exactly what's happened. The SPD's down over 200 officers, and that's not counting the ones that are out on either disability or taking their vacation to end up retiring as well. So they formed another unit, like a squad of 100 there's like 40 out at any particular evening to help fill in where things get the priority calls start to pick up. But if what our council has done, what do we have? 3,000 or 4,000 homeless people in our, and they've taken that over the rest of us in this city. That is their priority, spending all the money on that. Well, what about you, me, and everybody else? Suppose we have a problem. It's not the police's fault. They've been stripped. Their tools have been taken away from them with the riots. I've done several newscasts where, and I get emotional about this because it just pisses me off, is that council takes away effective, less lethal tools like tear gas, stun grenades, flashbangs, those kinds of things, to disperse crowds, because the crowds, we can't properly protest and riot if they do this to us. It makes no sense. So how do you peacefully break that up? Because all you're leaving those officers on the line with is their baton, maybe their mace, and God forbid their firearm. It doesn't make any sense to me of how they're letting this happen. We've always had homeless. We've always had mentally ill. We've always had the drug addicted and the drunks. But they were somehow held accountable. Today, it's your fault, it's my fault that they're in the position they are, but no fault to theirs. If you put that person, when they commit a crime, in front of a judge and say, you either go into this treatment or you go to jail. And we'll facilitate the treatment, we'll help you get trained, we'll do whatever it is. But that's not what's being done. There's an issue with the parks. You see what our parks are like, and the tents, all that out there. I wouldn't want my grandchild playing in that park. It's just not safe anymore. But this is where the priority has gone in this city, and we somehow have to get back to the mainstream. First off, stop voting by district. That's how these clowns get elected, is that there's a small voting base, and it's not an at-large voting to where the mainstream votes, and that throws out the far left and the far right, so and gets it more to center that those people are representatives of us all, and that's what's changed.
Isn't that, and that's very good, there's a lot there. Isn't that part of the problem, though, in our present form of democracy? It seems like the fringes are the ones voting, and the ones in the middle are oftentimes maybe a little bit skeptical of the whole process of voting. And maybe for some of the reasons that you described, maybe, in certain regulations for voting for, say the city council, where you only get to vote for your district, maybe people are discouraged by that. Maybe if they were able to vote for the whole council, maybe they would be a little bit more encouraged to participate.
I think you're going to see a change. I think there's going to be, people are fed up. And like Lisa Herbold's idea of let's give them a free pass for these types of crimes. You watch what's going to happen is that the citizens are going to take the law in their own hands, and that's never good. Because one, obviously there's no training, there's no enforcement behind it, and that's just going to be a mess.
Well, yesterday I was in Aurora, and a pregnant woman came up to me and she says, "Can you buy me a smoothie?" I said, "Where's your man?" "I don't have a man." And I said, how are you getting along? She says, well, I'm in the LEAD program, and the LEAD program is helping me, has been helping me over the past many months, saying that they're gonna help me get these services, but it never happens to pan out. And I said, are you saying LEAD? LEAD? King County LEAD? I said, LEAD gives a lot of false promises and leaves you hanging, and then they go and help somebody else. What they do is they pull out a clipboard, they put down your name and information, and then they leave you standing to go help somebody else. And I said, well, if you're pregnant and you're at risk for addiction, I encourage you to go to Ballard Swedish, to the administrative office, because they have a pregnant women's program to deal with addiction, and that's the quickest, fastest way to get away from LEAD and get people that can really help you. And I happen to have one of the doctor's cards in my possession, handed her the card. I said, make sure you call on Monday or go to the hospital. And I said, do you have medical? She told me the medical, she said. And I said, they have that. But get away from LEAD if you can, because they have a failed policy, and that's all I ever hear. LEAD is part of that Lisa Herbold plan, and let's give everybody a free pass, you know, and it's that harm reduction where, well, you know what, we're gonna, when you're ready, we wait till they're ready, and then we'll help. Well, then it leaves us having to babysit in the commercial areas and the green belts and the schoolyards and the parks, and it's, you know what it's like for me to go clean that stuff up, and you know what we do with the cleanups along the trail and certain areas of Fremont and Ballard. It's nasty, it's gross, and it's not fair to our quality of life in Seattle. We're better, Seattle's better than this.
Absolutely.
I mean,
We can be better stewards of our community.
but I
for sure.
think the outreach that some of these organizations are doing is not effective, other than they have this nice number on their sheet to pass on for requests for dollars. But I swear to God, the social worker is not the fix on the streets.
What I hear from that is something that I've been hammering probably too much. You guys are going to get sick of it. But the state is not the answer, right? People like you out in the community helping people, that's the answer. People like Mr. Fuda helping people kind of get familiarized with the different processes that are necessary. Some government, you know, I hate to say it, may be necessary. I might be a little bit extreme in my views on that, but the authority piece that you mentioned earlier makes sense to me. You have to give the law enforcement branch of a government authority to enforce the rules. My only question is, do we have a system that is going to be effective once you enforce the rules in the first place? And I think that is part of the breakdown in all this. Yeah, there's a breakdown in Seattle specifically, but you could also look at it nationally, where the politicians are not trying to further the best interests for the majority of the citizens, but instead for the various interest groups that will pack their pockets with dollars so that they can run fancier campaigns, so that they can win office, so that they can progress their career.
I can answer that question in a heartbeat. The quickest, fastest way is building a positive public-private partnership with the public sector and private sector to focus on targetable type matters in our communities. I mean, homeless is one, senior issues are another, youth and family is another issue, business, economic opportunities is another issue, but we have to have partnerships. And with the fact that we lost our crime prevention coordinator in North Seattle, I was thinking, who can we get to fill the gap? And I said to you, maybe we can get Crime Stoppers and Jim Fuda, and that's how we got you.
Yeah,
Today, I mean, it's a gap that needs to be filled.
We're a great, we take tips. We have a tool. We just in the past had 1-800-222-TIPS, a number that people would call into. In November of 2016, we started using the P3 Tips app. our tips automatically quadrupled and our arrests more than doubled. Why? We're in the gaming generation. I joke I can't get my granddaughter to talk to me on the telephone, but she texts me back in 30 seconds. And that's the concept, and it's very effective. And then we get stuff, it's a partnership between the police, the citizens, and the media. And just last night I did a story with David Rose for Washington's Most Wanted on that mass shooting at 23rd and Jackson last week. And we have some good footage of the vehicle, some of the suspects. Over 30 rounds were fired where the 2-year-old baby girl was shot in the face. And so we'll get that solved. I mean, just because we got the citizens out there looking out for each other, and if they're afraid to talk to the police, is that they've got this avenue, and then there's a monetary incentive if their tip leads to an arrest and a charge. That's why I took that concept overseas with the transnational crime stuff that we talked to Rotary about, is that it only makes sense that you've got people that were corruption-based, pick those crimes that are corruption-based, the citizens are afraid to report to the police because they're afraid of retribution. This way, they can report anything that they see, knowing that they're safe from anybody who knows who they are.
I love that aspect of what you do because it brings responsibility, but also it brings it closer to the community, which I think is what everyone, at least a lot of people want right now, is they want their communities to be more in charge of how they're run. And it seems like this is a great way to do that. My question to you, Mr. Fuda, would be, do you believe we need to do any sort of updating or changing or reduction of the laws that we have on the books, specifically in Seattle, but maybe federally as well?
Well, let's look at it this way. Decriminalizing stuff doesn't make it go away. It's just one more thing to not let someone that's doing something wrong to hold them responsible. And we are at the point where, and decriminalizing, like I said, if what Herbold wants to do is somebody wants to come in and steal from my garage, and as long as it's under a certain value amount, that's okay, that's free. So it comes back to fair and equitable responsibility, and that decriminalizing things. If I'm a drug addict and okay, well, I can carry around now this amount of coke or crack or whatever on me, is that making me any more responsible citizen? It means I can. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Maybe that's the North Precinct.
I can. Does it? It makes it harder for the next person because I'm still going to have to go out and steal for it because I don't have any source of income because I'm an addict, but I'm not held accountable for anything. So decriminalizing is not the answer.
My friend and I were talking last night, and we were talking about how it's an interesting time that we live in, partially because it seems like we live in a society with a pathology leaning towards chaos, and in some ways we have a pathology leading towards order, and that's tyranny, right? So I would say that certain things like our surveillance state after 9/11, things like that are towards the path of tyranny, endless wars, things like that. And I would say in Seattle, there are a lot of things pointing towards the other side of the coin on that, and that's the pathology of chaos, where we don't have law and order, we don't have authority that is working to make sure that the majority of people are able to live free from other people infringing upon their liberties and their rights.
When I hit 145th and I'm headed north, I make sure the seatbelt's on, I make sure that my tabs are right, and the speed limit says such and such, and I'm going with my seatbelt on, and I pass that Shoreline PD officer with a smile. And then I get over into 205th and head on my way to Kenmore, and it drops down to 25. and then you got the red light, you know, where if you go through a school zone, it
There's
says
cameras.
15. Man, I'm going 15. But when I get on the other side of 145th and headed to the south end, seatbelts off, rolling, you know, I have to check
You're
my
part of the
tabs, and
problem.
I mean, I know, but I mean, it's still. But when I see that Seattle police car, when I see that cruiser come behind me, seatbelt on, good posture.
I hate to say it, Rudy.
It's respect for our community social norms, and it's not just the street cop, but it's what we citizens have asked our council and our leadership to pass certain laws to protect our school zones, to make sure it's 30 going up Holman Road, because there's been lots of wrecks.
Well, I just want to, pardon the interruption, bless you. You are a kind, caring, civil individual, productive member of society. You're excellent. You don't have to. They're not going to pull you over for any of that. They're not going to pull you over for anything. We live in the Wild West right now in a lot of cases.
I would say that if I'm driving up Holman Road up toward 15th Avenue Northwest, and I see that traffic officer with his
They're gonna
radar
get
out,
you?
heck yeah, I watch him. He'll get me. And you got that DUI squad out there that I see once in a while at night. I won't say his name to protect his innocence and not guilt by association. I see him out there, and I see him pulling people over. And so there's some good things that do happen in Seattle. I can't. And when I've had to call 911 because something's happening right now, officers respond, bless their heart. But there are gaps in the system because of the defunding. The very people that are there to protect us, that we've asked them to take care of for us, for all communities, all citizens, not just the privileged, but for those that are even on the streets that are getting shafted by their own people with an addiction. I mean, they're the ones that get assaulted and raped and stolen from. And they'll call the police. Officers show up. They take care of business. I just want to say that not everything within the Seattle Police Department is lame, because there are some those officers on the streets do one heck of a good job in trying to protect all of its citizens, and they don't check the race or the ethnicity, but they do have a description of whether it's a male or a female. They show up, and most of the time the service is professionalism with care. And I mean, that's how I see it.
Well, there's a lot of problems that aren't related to good people trying to do good things, right? There's lots of good people trying to do good things in SPD, even though I'm harsh on them. Even the bureaucrats, there's lots of good people doing good things in those offices too. And I'm sure, Mr. Fuda, you know a lot of those people. You probably work with them. Is that right?
I do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't believe that to be much of the problem. Defunding the police in the manner that we're doing, that's going to be a problem, right?
Well, with no plan.
With no plan. And what about this? They're passing legislation and laws that the police don't want to enforce. Do the police really want to pull you over for going 30 on a 25?
But are we allowed?
No,
are we
they don't.
allowed to be a part of that process to give input on opposition to what they're doing during this time of the pandemic?
We should be.
We're not. I mean, I've tried to get into those hearings, and can't get in unless you're. I don't know who's getting in, but I know I'm not getting in.
So, Mr. Fuda, what do you think? You've been listening to us ramble about this.
In what regard?
In the regard of, is this simply an issue of getting new council members in, maybe potentially more conservative council members in who will come in and give more authority and resources to the police, or is it something else?
I think it's a mixture of it all, and I think that the problem is that this council that we have now, you've seen the deterioration of what our cities since they've been in office. Take Sawant, horrible, but we need somebody that actually has a a plan. Someone could say defund all they want, but if they don't have a plan in place, what does that do for us citizens that obey the law, that pay our taxes, and they're simply pulling money from us, and our services are declining?
And that's kind of what Grant was talking about, the loss prevention gentleman that we had on, is that the citizens bear the brunt of all these decisions.
Absolutely.
Everything in Seattle is more expensive.
Yep.
Housing is more expensive. You know, I'm kind of a tinfoil hat guy. You know, I think that maybe having a governor in office who's really, you know, green energy and has a construction background, I think it's a little bit coincidental that our housing prices and all the costs of material are so high here, and why in construction, I'm in construction, we get all of our material from Texas and Florida. I think that's a little bit interesting, even though it takes thousands of dollars to ship that stuff up here. Right? And it's still cheaper to do it that way than to have manufacturers in Washington.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that part of it, but I just think that a lot of it is taking care of us, the mainstream. And what is the job of the police? To reduce crime and the fear of crime, to where people feel comfortable walking the street and not have to worry about their safety. Look at our downtown core now. What's happened? You can blame the pandemic, but you can also blame our county. There's other cities that are in this pandemic that don't look like our city. That's for sure.
I saw a horrible video of a woman outside of the court office there just getting knocked out with a punch. Are you familiar with that video? Yeah, absolutely horrible. And it's not the Seattle. I grew up here most of my life, and it's not really the sort of thing that seemed to be very prevalent in the past. We seem to be going in the wrong direction, like you say.
And you know, really, all I want is this protection order to get to the North Precinct, so my mom doesn't have to live in fear.
Well, we figured out the protection order.
And I gotta wait till Monday, and then I have to take away from my client list and this beautiful spring weather and cutting grass and taking care of Dino and all the other stuff that I do in the neighborhood, making sure Aurora's looking good for our immigrant small business owners.
Well, if it helps, I'll pay for your lift down to City Hall instead of the bus.
You don't need to pay that. I take the bus. I need to know what the heck's going on. I mean, I really do. I enjoy taking the bus, because it's street talk. Rudy from Ballard, walking down the sidewalk, talking to people, meeting people, and it's a great gift to be able to go and get the current event status of taking like a field trip downtown Seattle. But it is bad. It is, I mean, it's bad. It's not fair to our city and to the tourists that come in and have to, it's trying to get to Chinatown through City Hall Park. Fat chance, baby. I'm not doing it. I'm going to make sure I get a ride or something to get from point A to C, because I'm not going to hit the B.
Yeah, because of what's gone on.
Bad.
Our Crime Stoppers Camaro they were marked and had all kinds of P3 tips, Crime Stoppers. They were donated by Burien Chev, and we had their stuff on it, and they were getting vandalized. So we had to strip them. I had a bicycle thrown at me in the car in Pioneer Square just before we had it, and thank God the guy wasn't strong enough to get it on top of my car. But we were able to, so we just decided to unmark them.
Wow. Well,
This is great, man. I mean, I'm going to go to the sheriff's civil unit. Yeah, right there, the first floor. Yeah, right there toward the
Magnetometers and to the left.
Near the little cafe, the restaurant there on the other side.
The one inside the building.
Yeah, the courthouse cafe or something.
Right.
Get some great cheeseburgers there too, believe it or not.
God, you're good with cheeseburgers.
I love food.
You and cheeseburgers are like PB&J.
The bus rides are the best.
Oh man. I should have asked this earlier. Does it bother you if I smoke this? It's a nicotine.
No.
All right. So then, I still want to try to get a better idea of what you, Mr. Fuda, would advocate for us as a community to do, whether it's our voting, or whether it's our actions in the community, our interactions with the police or Crime Stoppers or each other, what do you think it is, maybe a few things that we could do that would really help?
I think, how do we get a hold of Crime Stoppers?
1-800-222-TIPS or P3 TIPS. We look at every one of those. And even if it's an opinion, or something you want to put in, we'll look at that as well. But our job is to get that to the right jurisdiction and hopefully to the right detective.
So what area do you cover here in Western Washington?
My program has King, Snow, Kitsap, and Island, but we basically go all the way up to the Canadian border.
Very nice.
We have about 4.2 million people that we supposedly service in those counties. So it's the second busiest program and successful program in the United States, next to Houston, and Houston is fully government funded, and they got their own building and people. So we're number 2. We even surpassed LA and New York.
Wow.
So getting the app, all I do is I go to Play Store or whatever it is.
Your app store?
App Store, and then I look for P3 app.
P3 Tips app.
P3 Tips.
And it's a free download.
Excellent.
And in this area, homicides and bank robberies pay an automatic $1,000. Others there's a scale that we have for different types of crimes, and usually they average anywhere from $300 to $1,000. Yeah. For a successful tip.
Successful meaning like charges are filed, or successful they're convicted?
No, we don't wait for conviction because that could take years. So it's the arrest and then a formal charge.
Understand.
And the detective says, this is the tip we have. And the cool thing about it is that some of these crimes, the detective has 80% of the case done. And that one tip gives us the other 20% and to move forward with something. That's what we're hoping for with this mass shooting we just did, and several other crimes. Media relations officers with agencies are now very much involved. And if you watch Washington's Most Wanted, you'll see Tim Meyer from my old agency, King County Sheriff. He's on there with their cases a lot. Everett PD was on there. Snell, I think his name was on last night as well. So it's a way that the police know that they can get the word out to the citizens.
What about these situational? Did you say something that you had something on?
Situational awareness video. Yeah, we put this together a couple of years ago. It's up on YouTube. If you Google Crime Stoppers Situational Awareness video, it'll come up, and it's how to keep yourself safe in today's changing times. And it's not that you walk down the street paranoid, but you pay attention to your surroundings. Even on our website, you'll see that because of the pandemic, I put out some safety tips, like for closed businesses. What do you do to keep your business from getting tagged or broken into? We've got one, situational awareness of what to do when you're walking down the street. I know when I walk my dog, I don't see anybody on the street, which means that's perfect for a criminal because there's no witnesses. Domestic violence is up 30%. We put one out there where what neighbors can do to help, and then we did one for civil unrest. We had that coming through the presidential election and the swearing in, so we decided to put one there. So those 4 are on our website as well. But the situational awareness one is dealing with, what do I do if I hear shots fired? And are they near? And these are split-second decisions that could save your life. And if you're far enough away and you think you can run as far as you can. If you can't, then what's the next thing you do? You hide. And there's concealment and cover. And I explained the both of them. Concealment means if you're in a Nordstrom, if you've got to hide in a clothing rack where they don't see you. Cover is something like you're behind a cement wall, and that will stop a bullet. And then if you have to fight, be prepared, grab whatever you can, whether it be a scissor, if you're in an office, like scissors or a stapler or a flower pot or whatever it might be, and try not to have to do that alone, but know that if you have to fight, you'll be in there for the fight of your life. So these are all things to consider. We talk about condition white, orange, and red, meaning people walk down the street like this. How many of them almost get frickin' run over by a car because they cross the street with their nose to the phone? Is that you're not paying attention to your surroundings. You will be, if there's someone out there, you'll be the target.
Awareness and consciousness is a big thing, big topic right now, I think, in all of society. And part of the issue that we're having is technology is taking over and making us addicted to our phones, like you were saying, looking at our phones all the time. But part of it, I think, in this theme, is that we are gradually giving away our responsibility and our authority to others in our society and saying it's the government's responsibility to make sure that, you know, the sidewalks are all paved with markings, and that'll protect me from a car. When really, like you're saying, your own awareness, your own consciousness is most of the time what is going to keep you safe. The other things are just to make sure things go as smooth as possible. Does that? What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, but it's our responsibility too. I mean, we in fact, that's one thing we mentioned about the P3 tips and what you guys can do. You see something in your community that doesn't sound right, report it. Even if it's not urgent right there for to have a police response, because for some of the things like Rudy with this can't get a police response. So with that said, is it report it and do your the duty what you have to do to help keep your community safe. That's what we told the people up on Aurora when I went and hand out those P3 tip cards with Rudy a month or so back. So I think those are all important things that little things that you can do.
When you say our responsibility, are you talking about our, like the...
As a citizen.
As a citizen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. I totally agree with that. Now, do you ever postulate or think about policies and legislation, or are you more focused on the enforcement and making sure that there's this avenue for people to get tips in and to communicate through Crime Stoppers, and you guys can interface with the police and the various departments? Exactly.
We're a tool, and we get that information out to the right people. But also, what we're expanding our community footprint as well. I've been out a lot more, and it's I think it's even more important in this pandemic time than when me with a marked Crime Stoppers car waving in a parade. I mean, that says, oh yeah, we know you guys and blah blah blah. But to actually do those impact things. Today, this afternoon, I'm meeting Paul Casey with KKNW Radio to talk about just these active shooter situations and what we can do to make people safe and gun control, and how do we, if there is gun control, and how do we work it. And I'm an impression that we have laws on the books. Let's enforce the ones we got before we even consider what is the plan to take the guns away from criminals. How do we do that? How do we keep the guns out of the hands of the mentally ill? And the mentally ill side of it is even subjective. I'm saying today, I could be a nutcase tomorrow.
And you could, exactly, and it could be drug-induced, it could be fatigue-induced, it could be emotionally induced.
Multiple life stressors all at once.
So
sure.
Many things,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So that's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. Do you have any other preview maybe from that conversation? Guns and gun legislation and all of that is very interesting to me, and I just love to hear it.
It's a tough, complex problem, and I wished I knew the answer, but let's face it, there's some people that should not have firearms, and I know that a lot of it is our suicides are higher because people get depressed at that one point, and there's a gun in the house, and it's obviously much more lethal. So I understand. So it even becomes more of a medical type of problem with look at it as a what's the word that doctors are even saying that it's its own pandemic.
Isn't that very dangerous to think of it like a medical problem and not a freedom issue?
Yeah. Some people should just not have guns. I don't, the freedom, the rights, it's all such a complex problem. So I truly believe that there'd be obviously less shootings, less police shootings if we were a little bit more limited. I don't think everybody should be. The answer is everybody walking around with a gun on their hip.
How does Switzerland do it?
Switzerland's is a fallacy. That's not true now that there's a gun in every home. My wife is Swiss, and my father-in-law has an old weapon that he was given when he was 19, and I don't even know if that thing works. My brother-in-law is a colonel in the Swiss Army, and because he's a colonel, he has a sidearm. He doesn't even bring it home because he's got two kids. So but that idea that everybody has a gun is just not. It's not true.
It's not true, and because what I heard was that they all have issued guns, and that they have to qualify every so often with those guns, and that's just not even true.
No.
Oh my goodness.
No, they have people. They have kids. There's unless they have some kind of medical conditions or whatever. Or they got some kind of law where. That they don't have to serve. The other ones go in and they do their 2 or 3 months basic training, and they got to come back once a year for like a reservist for a certain amount of time.
Like a ready reserve unit.
But understand, Switzerland is a neutral country. They call that a military, but what they really are is an emergency management system.
Security force, basically.
And they supplement at the border sometimes. The medical side of them help give shots now for the vaccine. But as far as them going, I think they have 2 F-18s. It's about all in their arsenal there.
Are they part of NATO?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, so they rely on the U.S. for their defense. Yeah. Wow. This is all very fascinating. So then I'm guessing you wouldn't be in favor of some sort of maybe outside the box thinking when it comes to the gun issue, where maybe we institute something where more people are trained with guns, more people are capable with guns, and that, kind of like the idea that if you are a martial artist, you are less likely to fight in public than if you were to be someone who is, maybe a strong person, but you haven't gone through that mental discipline and that training to understand, what the actual ramifications of fighting are.
I think that anybody that purchased a firearm should have that. I've been trained, but what was the point I was going to make? There's that they will let's after the last mass shootings in schools, let's put a veteran in every school. I was in the military. I was drafted. There are some people there that can't walk and chew gum at the same time, even though they were in the military. There's no way I want them watching after my kids. Mm-hmm. So just because we say we're a veteran, I don't think that's the answer either.
And speaking of that, what do you think about the idea that we look to the military for a lot of our policing? And a lot of police have a background in the military. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that was true early, but not so much anymore. I mean, you don't come out of a Green Beret and you're automatically going to go into police work. There was more of that through the Vietnam era because police departments were growing. This one especially, we have what was called a PEP hire, and these were military guys coming from Vietnam, and they hired a bunch for the sheriff's office. They like 150 of them all at one slot. It took 10 years to get rid of the knuckle fucks.
You know what's funny?
I love it.
You bring up martial arts. Taken karate since I was a kid.
Washington Karate Association.
Sensei Day. I said I wasn't going to cuss and swear. I'll treat Mr. Fuda like I would treat my sensei. So anyway, so here's what. So Kumite is fighting, and so over the years, fighting is not taught. Fighting is learned. Now that I'm older, and you young people when you get hit, you get really mad, and then you start thinking, oh, well, I'm going to kick that guy's butt, and I know that's coming. So I've learned not to choose my battles. So I've taken what I've learned from the dojo and transformed it into good practice of using my gardening tools and skills in the landscape maintenance. It's just, there's this, that's the shear, this is the
Wax on, wax
yeah,
off.
no, that's the pick, and then there's this is the weed eater. I can make all sorts of noises. And the blower is so no violence. Leave it for the dojo. But if I'm on the streets and I feel there is a need for violence, I have one thing I can do: call 911, call the cops, and make sure I report it and be a good witness and have a good description of the person that's wanting to wallop or harm me or harm others. So self-discipline is not taught, self-discipline is learned, and that's what we learn in the military too. I mean, it's not just about firearms and killing people, but self-discipline is getting up on time, being the best we can, and finish.
Making your bed.
Making that bed, and better make sure. And then, of course, I would be looking like this because I'd be shaved, I'd have a haircut, and and we all look the same, and that's the respect we have. And the other thing is in the military, is that we learn to get along because we depend on each other to get through the day on certain tasks. The same thing we do here in the community as we work with Rotary. When we're called for when service is needed, let's make it happen. And I think that's the coolest thing, is that we build these public-private partnerships along the way. And this last meeting we had an international group of people that I was not planning on, and it was very it was young, youthful, and inspiring. And people really got a lot out of it, especially when it comes to our clean waterways and the safety of self and others. So anyway, Mr. Fuda, you are second to none.
Thank you, sir.
I don't believe I swore. I treated you like my sensei.
Yeah, I got
sensei.
one out there, sorry.
And so it's important. And if my mom watches it, Mom, we know what to do. The sheriff's office, the civil unit, downtown Seattle, $25. I've got it covered.
If you're gonna swear, knuckle fuck is a great way to go. Rudy, that was very beautiful. You're a beautiful man. I've said that many times, and I'll keep saying it. One of my favorite people. I really liked what you said about connecting gardening with karate, and it reminded me of the idea that if you master one thing, it allows you to understand mastering all things. And so I just wanted to say basically that. But Mr. Fuda, do you need to go?
No, I'm
got
good.
some time? Okay.
I thought we were going to do this till 11, so I'm good. It's only 22.
Yeah, Rudy was trying to wrap things up
Oh,
there.
well,
We're not wrapping up anything.
Hey, look at that sun out there. I got the grass is growing.
Yeah, I know you don't wrap it up quick, or maybe at all. So anyways, Mr. Fuda, so what, I guess, back to what we can do. What should the community be doing about the firearms issue?
Well, like I said, I don't know, unless they know somebody that probably shouldn't have one. Someone's acting strange or talking about or identifying. This is what are praising like the shooters, that kind of thing. Is that's someone should probably be notified. In fact, that's something that you could send us on a P3 tips. You got somebody that you work with is not, doesn't seem like their personality has kind of changed a little bit, or like I said, they're thinking what a hero this shooter was, and did the right thing, and I feel he seemed relating to something like that, or he's talking about buying a firearm. something like that, we probably need to know about that.
You know, for me, I'm conflicted on that, because it seems appropriate in many circumstances, right? But then I'm scared of the situations where someone might be spiteful. Someone might be trying to, maybe they are anti-guns for everybody. Maybe they know this person has guns. And then they say, oh yeah, I heard this person talking crazy, can you look into it? How do you disprove it from your end if you are just a member of society who is an independent thinker and who may ruffle feathers with certain individuals?
Yes, there is in fact, the shrink was from here. He developed a 19-point checklist on what to look for in employees, how they've been acting, whatever, and at what point in this checklist does it come that probably HR needs to know about it, and then maybe the police need to know about it. And I've got to have this for this afternoon, because I forgot exactly what the term is, what it is, what this checklist is, but it's been proven pretty reliable. Granted, a lot of it's after the fact, because they use this as a checkpoint for some of the shooters that have already taken place, but it's something that that is actually proven to work.
Because we don't want to get into a Minority Report situation, right, where people are being arrested before they commit crimes, right? If you know what I'm talking about with that. But do you know maybe some of the 19 points?
Yeah, just isolation from everybody. That was one of the big ones. Talking more radical. Doesn't associate with really anybody from work. Praises, like I mentioned, other shooters. Those kinds of things are on that point.
Sounds like a comedian to me.
Yeah.
In a way, right? You know? But certainly there's a serious aspect to it as well. Okay. Well, what about, and this is something that's close to my heart right now, is what about the regulations and legislations that seem to affect people disproportionately, specifically drug-related crimes? What do you have any thoughts about? Again, that's really, in my opinion, it's more policy related. So I apologize because I keep bringing that up, and I know you're really more focused on the enforcement aspect.
Well, I know where you're getting at. What I think where a disproportionate a portion of society is one held to a higher accountability. Well, I think a lot of that comes from what they're not taking into account is past record, and then the states are different. With those, like we've legalized marijuana how long, and in Texas they still shoot you for it, so to speak, you know. So it's that kind of thing where it's past record builds up. In fact, like for a gross misdemeanor, let's say a crime, that's punishable up to a year in jail and $1,000 fine. If I'm I get a misdemeanor and I've never been in trouble before, what are they going to fine me? $50?
Is that right?
Well, I don't know. I'm just saying. But if I've done nothing,
250.
yeah, probably. And if I have a complete clean record, but if I consistently do this and I've got 15 years of 30 of these things, they're going to eventually put me in jail.
And that makes a lot of sense. But what about the issue that and I don't know if these numbers are accurate, but I went to Seattle University. I studied political science. I got a lot of this kind of message that people in all communities use drugs, but people in certain communities are the ones who oftentimes get caught for using and distributing those drugs. And that's kind of what maybe plays into this idea that certain people have a long record of doing these things, and other people, maybe it's the first time getting caught, or maybe it's the one and only time they ever get caught.
Yep.
And then maybe they stop, or maybe they keep going and they just don't get caught again. Certainly that happens, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
You know, in our community, north, in certain areas, it's a health issue. And in that community, for the others, it's a crime issue. And so the best and fastest way to treat this problem is to treat it equal. And many times there are some people that have more resources to get out of their troubles than others.
Sure.
And then, but still, if you have the resources, they should still be held accountable to do the same community service that somebody else does, or be held to the same standards, or they lose that fund that they were able to buy themselves out of it. Something needs to happen there where there's, I believe, if you're gonna do the crime, you gotta do the time, make it equal opportunity for all communities. So for me, once upon a time, I had a $50 warrant for peeing in public.
God, you are just a
So,
favorite.
hold on. And so, North City was looking for a rape suspect. I fit the description, but they found out it wasn't me. So I went back in the North City Tavern, started to drink my pint of beer. Here comes the sheriff's department, it was the sheriff's department comes rolling in. Come with us, you're done drinking tonight. I said, for what? He says, you got a warrant out for your arrest. For what? $50 warrant for urinating in public. I said, it's Friday night. What do you mean? Yep, it's Friday night. Hold on, let's see. So they call somebody on the I'm not going to say who they call. Eric, we've got you know who out here in North City. What do you want us to do with them? And I hear this. Fuck them down. So I got taken down to King County Jail, the old jail, not the new jail. The old jail. On a Friday night, didn't get
Stuck there
till Monday. And I mean,
They knew it too.
You know, and so what do? I walk out of there just feeling cheap and stupid, and
sober.
but I was sober. You know, that was sober. But those are the kind of things that happen to us that cause it to be deformed, to be reformed. It's easy to feel deformed. Okay, so that's, and then eventually it works itself out and it becomes a quality of life, maybe going a better direction, or we stay stuck. But the resources are there available here in the community for guys like me and others. And I just happen to be grateful that I had some people that put the fire underneath my tail and encouraged me to get sober, to stay sober, stuck with me, stay the course, like Commander Pat Slack from Snohomish County, you know, Slack. Mm-hmm. Slack called me up one day, he says, Rudy, this is Slack. I know when you've been drinking, and I know when you're not drinking. And I know you're drinking right now because I can hear you slurring. Yeah. And he says, I think it's a good time for you to get sober and make sure that you're there for your family who may need you further down the line. And then not more than 10 minutes later, it's my doctor calling me. She says, I want to see you in my office today. I said, today? You've been drinking. I need you to sign a form that I'm not responsible for your substance abuse, and I want you to go see an addiction doctor for your pain management. I'll give you till tomorrow morning. If you're not here, you need to find a new doctor, because I'm not going to be responsible for your. And so the next thing is here I'm in the office signing this form that I'm not going to try to reach out to other doctors to get opiates. Mm-hmm. And so I filled out the form. So my pharmacist knew about it. my primary care physician, all my doctors knew that I was a high-risk person to maybe try to pull a fast one to get opiates, even though I wasn't addicted to opiate, it was alcohol. But at the time I was using some opiates to deal with the pain management from a hip replacement. But it worked for me. You know, it was pretty awesome. And so for me, it took that kind of an intervention, and there I had a lot on the line too at that time. It was either live or die, and if I wanted to die, I'd be not here today. So, but Commander Slack, Pat Slack, he's the man.
Yeah, a lot of these guys don't, or some cops that I've worked with, that they can't wait for their 25 or 30 years, and they're gone. You never see them again. They're living in their, you know, they moved to Goodyear, Arizona because it's cheaper before they can go on their pension stuff. You know, it just hasn't been me. I mean, I'm 68 years old. I've been, I was a 19-year-old military policeman, so I'm basically 1 year shy of 49 years in public service, and this is that I'm looking at. This is that stage of life to give back and learn utilize all that I've learned over the time, and then go after some really bad people, and even ones outside the United States. I mean, I told you the story about the Syrian girls that and I could tell that for this if you want me to. But,
Please do.
well, the Transnational Crime Initiative that we started using for the Balkan region, because there's the Balkan route that goes from South Asia through the Middle East, through Turkey, Greece, and then through the Balkans and into Western Europe, which makes all that stuff easier to come to the United States as well. Is the idea was to hit it at the source or the transit routes. So I picked human trafficking, terrorism, illicit trade, arms dealing, drug smuggling, cybercrime, and bank fraud. I did one beta test over there with a trusted police commander that I'd worked with when I lived over there full time. And I had him bring 4 countries together, 2 outside the EU, which would be Bosnia and Serbia, 2 inside the EU, Slovenia and Croatia. The border between Croatia and Bosnia and Serbia is still corrupt. Once they cross that border, they're free to run all of Western Europe. So I did 1 press release and 1 presentation, and I had 47 tips in a week. But I soon learned that Bosnia was not the place to do this because of the 3 different, they call them governments, but it's cultures. It's the Bosniaks, which are the Muslim, the Croats are the Catholics, and the Serbs, which are the Orthodox. And with one likes it, the other 2 don't. So we moved into Serbia. Took me almost 2 years to build that relationship, find the trusted policeman, give my presentation. I've been back there 6 times to build that, had them a contingent here last February of 2020 to learn the operational side, and then COVID hit that next month. But while I was there last, I'm meeting with a group called Astra, and they are a group that rescues trafficked children. And that she's telling us the story that morning they were able to capture 2 Syrian Christian girls that were 16 now. They were sold at age 14 just because they're Christian, brought through the Balkan route into Western Europe, where they were raped repeatedly, daily for a couple of years, and they got word a week prior that they were in Bosnia, and they decided to wait till they came down into Serbia, so they, just because of the, it's easier than trying to cross the border, and that kind of thing. So they got wind they were coming down that particular morning. They grabbed him. Woman telling the story starts to cry, and I said, "Well, that's a good thing, right?" She said, "There was a 3rd girl. She was brought to Kosovo, were strapped to a table, and they harvested her organs for the organs to be sold to the highest bidder on the black market."
God, we live in absolute darkness in places.
This is why this is so important. I mean, I can mention those other crimes to. That's not the issue in my eyes. It's what they do to human life, and especially innocents that have no say. I mean, I ended that video that that I have where I say, you know what you do if this is your child. Help give us a voice to those kids that don't have it. And that is my motivator.
Bless you for doing that work. Bless Commander Slack. Bless you for making the decision to fix your life, Rudy. But yeah, there's so much darkness out there. There's so much light as well. There's so much good, and you're an example of that, as well as so many people. But we do have to be vigilant, and we do have to work through these things. And I'm just so encouraged by groups like yourself.
Thanks.
Groups like we had at our Rotary Club, Paladin Rescue. They, I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. They work in Southeast Asia, doing some of the same things that you were talking about over in the Balkans. And God, there's some darkness out there. There's some.
It's just the quality of life and the value of life is different. I'll give you an example. I'm in Indonesia. I wrote the demonstration management course for Indonesia and taught some iterations and then passed it on to the feds. And I'm at a training center about 40 kilometers outside of Surabaya on Java. And we're driving and we go over this bridge every day. And the first day I saw this, a small little, like a Volkswagen flatbed truck stops over a dirt bridge. They take a kid, he can't be in his 20s, as I'm guessing, no arms and no legs. They propped him up on a post and put a bucket by him. Why, I mean, we leave to come back, he's still sitting there, crying his eyes out. And I asked the interpreter, I said, what? And she said, everybody in the family's got to pay their way. So this is what they did every day. This is how this kid begged and sat there, and this is the human life.
And am I understanding that correct, that this child's own family is doing this?
Yes.
For them?
Yeah.
And that
I mean,
was,
they take care of him, but this is what he had to do. They set him out there in a hot sun and with a bucket, and people would drop change in there, I guess, while he's out there during the day.
Yeah, and it's the same thing when I heard about the Paladin Rescue Group. You know, they were talking about sometimes when a family has 7 children and, you know, the choice is we're going to starve or we can sell one of them. They, you know, they're promised, oh, the child will get a great education, they'll be able to, you know, don't worry, just give us this, or we'll give you this money, you give us the child, and things will all work out. And then they end up in sexual slavery, they end up doing other things that are just human violations on such young and innocent people.
Yeah.
And then it creates a whole cycle of hurt and oftentimes violence.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. Has our state representatives, our King County executive, King County council members, the mayor, and Seattle City Council given up on those girls on the streets of Aurora? Because I'm seeing some young girls who are on a day-to-day basis, and it's starting to pick up again right now.
I can't answer. I don't know.
It's debilitating to see because we're talking about something.
Where do they come from? Or do you know where they're coming from?
A lot of them are from out of state. They move. The traffickers knows how to move them around. But I can tell you one thing, is that they're out there. But look a block away, look across the street, look at around the telephone pole. Someone's watching.
Oh, I see them.
Yeah.
I see them in cars. They don't care.
Yeah.
The pimps, I see them.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
It's incredible,
Mhm.
and it's in the light of day on Aurora. What we're talking about is oftentimes, you know, however they're smuggling these people, you know, Wayfair boxes or whatever it is. You know, that's under the cover of night. But here in Seattle, in daylight hours, you can see pimps and prostitutes walking Aurora, and it's a sad situation.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, there's only so much in enforcement that's out there, and now with, like I say, with things the way it is with the, I don't like, I even like to use the word defunding, because that's not the case. With just the exodus of a lot of SPD officers, is that you know,
There's no one to do it.
It becomes the resources, exactly. And you know, internet crime against children,
Way up.
43% in 1 year. And
Thank you, COVID.
yeah, and that's because the kids are home and the perverts are home, and they're taking advantage of it. And in fact, that's probably the next presentation I should do for you guys. I've been doing the data on that. I got a presentation on that as well.
Oh, we'd love to hear it. Yeah.
And then what about that WOW thing? Is there WOW?
Women of Washington is who I want to talk to too. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get Susie on with that. It is 11 o'clock. I just wanted to let you know. Do we need to wrap it up?
Yeah, I'm getting close. I gotta. Yeah.
Okay. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to mention? Do you want to go into anything that else that you'd like to talk about?
Well, you know, like I said, I've just been kind of free winging it here. It's just that it's just been great to be here. You should have me back anytime. And
Hell yeah!
That's what street talk's all about. I mean, it's sitting across the table, drinking a little organic coconut milk. I ain't drinking no coconut milk because, you know, that's not my style, but I mean, that's why you look so good. And
68 is incredible. I would have not pegged you for anything older than 50.
No way. Hey, can you...
I'm married to my wife's 50.
Holla! That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Hey, can you give us that information again of how to contact you?
Yeah, either through our website, crimestoppers.com, or is probably the best way. You know, through there, or I'm james.fuda at crimestoppers.com.
All right.
And what's that hotline number?
Well, that's a 1-800-222-TIPS.
That's great. 1-800-222-TIPS. Gonna start using it. Pass it out. Pass it around.
Street talk for the people.
You got that right.
All right, Mr. Fuda, thank you so much. Yes, we'd love to have you back, talk about some dark topics again, but that's kind of the world that you live in, right?
Actually, maybe it's even better that we do that presentation, to put something on that wall, and then I do it right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got to do some AV stuff, but we can make that happen.
And thank you for giving me the help with this, where to take this order.
Yeah, that was a tough
appreciate
one.
it. That was, I mean, still, I can't do, you know, that's
He
why.
had that one like that.
He had that, that's why he's the man.
He's the man. You're both the men. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for talking. Anything else before I say goodbye?
I think we're good.
All right. Thank you everyone for listening. Please leave a comment. Please interact with us. Let's try to work together in the community and make some progress as individuals, as people, so that we can progress collectively as well. All right?
Cool. Let's do it.
Many blessings.
Thanks.
Goodbye, everyone.